Hey everyone, this is Sue Reynolds, and we're getting ready to start our webinar for the Mechanical schools that are enrolled in Guiding All Kids. So I just want to check the technology, and I'm going to I think I'll unmute Amy Snyder and just make sure, Amy, if you've got a microphone, we'll be able to hear you. And you, yeah, Amy, can you hear us? Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. And can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Amy. I'll go ahead and mute you again so that you can have background conversations and not everybody will hear you. And it looks like Janet just came in too, so we've got someone from all 4 schools. That's wonderful. So so let's get started. And we'll have a place in a minute where I'd like to do some school updates like we've done in the past couple months. I always find that really helpful. So I know last month was a really busy month in looking at not only setting your goals for your program, but also looking at some of the things that can get in the way of you having the time you want to address goals. So it was a pretty full agenda last month. The good news is that this month is a lot less intense. So that while there was a lot of work to do last month, this month's going to be a lot less work. So that'll be good. Okay, so let's get started. This month, of course, we're talking about root causes, and we'll define that in a second. But I wanted to just start out with a couple of updates. One is that we have added a step on the process page for you all to mark webinar attendance. So either during this webinar or right after the webinar, if someone from your steering team will go in and when you click this icon in the enter column, it'll bring up the names of all of your school counselors. The names of your steering team members, and if you can just check off who participated in today's webinar, that would be great. And if you happen to remember past webinars as well, if you can go in and check those, that would be super. But at least let's get today's webinar so we kind of have a sense on our end of who all's participating. So wanted to talk about that. And then also wanted to give you a heads up that we've had some schools request easy ways to share the products of your discussions with the public. And we just wanted to point out to you that on the steering team page, down at the bottom in the left navigation bar, there's a link there or a button that says Publish Portfolio. When you do that, it'll ask you a couple of other questions, but then you'll get a public page that that has all of the products of your work. So for right now on your public page, the public could, if you wanted to go this route and publish your portfolio, the public could have access to your steering team roster, your council roster, your vision statement, your priority goals, and your focus goals. And this part we haven't done yet, so the program activities will not be available to them yet, and the program calendar will not be available to them yet. But if you like this idea, you can just click Publish Portfolio and then copy the URL from the page that is created and then distribute that URL. Or some schools they'll put a link on their school's website that says, counseling program, and then it will link to this page so that the public can see your school counseling program's vision and goals and activities and calendar. So once you've published it, if you change your mind, you can just go back in and click Unpublish, and it will take it right back down. So you can toggle back and forth between publish, not publish, publish, not publish. But this just gives the public a way to access the reports that come out of your work without having to have a username and password. So, I wanted to make you aware of that. And then some of you, I think, have noticed this already. We wanted to create kind of a helper for you to make sure that you're doing steps in order when it's important that you do them in order. So you'll notice on the process page that in the status column, there's some little orange messages now that say, like, for priority goals, this is unavailable until the program goals have met criteria. And as soon as we approve the program goals and it says meets criteria, then that'll open up your ability to work on the priority goals. So this is just a little kind of a tool that we wanted to put in just to help you make sure that you're working in order. We had a couple schools, I don't think it was any of yours, but we had a couple of schools that went down and tried to enter focus goals and they couldn't figure out why there was nothing to check. And, then they realized, oh, well, we haven't put in our program goals yet or identified priority goals. So we just wanted to make sure that you were doing these steps in order, and this will help you do that. So again, with you guys, I don't think this is going to be an issue, but I just wanted to let you know that anytime that you see these little orange messages, that's just kind of a heads up that it's important to do things in order. So we've made these buttons inaccessible until you have a previous step approved. So, okay. Then a little bit of review. Going into this month's meeting with priority goals, with root causes. So we're one step further along in the process, and we really have some big chunks behind us. So just to review, you've got your organizational structure set up. Been really, really pleased. We've had a conversation with several of your schools about how important it is to have your council members at the building level be quite diverse, and they have all the stakeholder groups represented on the council at the building level. And then how you're also able to bring those building level councils together to create your district council, and then how you can present information to all four councils together when you're meeting as a district council, but then for the discussions and the decision making, you'd break into the building level councils. And I think you've done a really nice job at that. I know for some of you that was kind of challenging, as we kept insisting that you have all the stakeholders represented on your building level councils. But I think that as we go forward, you'll see how important it is to have the diversity of voices at the table when you're discussing student data and making decisions at the building level. So your organizational structure, to be honest, I'm really proud of how you guys have handled that. I know that that's not easy at all, and I think that you've got an organizational structure that's really going to serve you for the next 5 years of working through, or 4 years of working through all of the different programs in guiding all kids. So that's pretty cool. Data collection, that's behind us now, and as you know, that was huge. I know that I think one of your schools maybe is still surveying, and that's fine. We're not too concerned yet, but we want to get those surveys done right away so we can move into your discussion about the goals. But your data collection, that was a ton of work, and you guys got it done. So, you should feel so good to have all of that data, and we're going to pull in more of that data this month to look at it to help with our root causes. And then you've started the foundations. You've had 3 meetings now with your council. You've got your benefit statement down. You've got your vision, where you're going, and now you have your goals. So the goals are those realistic steps. And you just really have done a fantastic job. So this month we'll work on root causes that kind of explain why students are not making the choices you want them to make. And then finally next month, then we'll move to the action part. We will start talking about, okay, what are we going to do about it that the kids aren't making these choices? And now that we know why they're not making those choices, how are we going to tackle this? So we're finally getting to the action part. Next month, for a lot of folks, everything kind of comes together finally when we're looking at the action part. And, in reality, until we get to the action, we haven't done anything that's really good for kids if it never comes off paper and, goes in the practice. practice. So, but because of this work we've done with all these foundations, when it gets into practice, it's really going to be good practice. So I'm really, really excited to see where this all goes with Mechanical. So, okay. And then I just wanted to review this part again. I know that this is kind of a hard concept for folks to get, and I know in talking with Tina that you all had some questions and maybe a little confusion about what the difference was between program goals and priority goals and focus goals. I think you've got that all clear right now, but just to kind of review that a little bit, the program goals are this big collection of all of the choices that ideally you want all kids to make. So the program goals will always include choices that we want kids to make that we don't have time yet to work on. So it's just this big collection of ideally all the choices we want kids to make. And then we said, okay, out of all these ideal choices we want kids to make, what are the ones that are so important that we want to start working on them right now, or in the coming year? And then because we were giving those goals priority, we were actually going to work on them. Then they came into a subgroup called the priority goals. Those are the goals that were helping, that we're actually doing activities to help kids make those choices. For some of you, I know when Tina and I talked, we know that some schools, we felt like they were helping kids make a whole lot more choices than you gave yourself credits for. So for some of you, we wrote back and said, oh my gosh, certainly you're helping kids make more than just 3 choices with all the time that you have. And, let's really think about all the different things you do as counselors to help kids make good choices. Let's identify what all those choices are. And I think when you started looking at it that way, then we ended up with, when you think about all that counselors do, I mean, there's, probably 30, 40, 50, maybe even 70 choices that you work right now to help kids make. So we really wanted to make sure that you were getting credit for all of the good choices that you help kids make as counselors. And so we kind of pushed you to really expand your priority goals, to think about all of the choices that you help kids make, and to make sure that we are moving everything from the ideal down into the reality, into your priority goals. And then finally, we asked you to identify a small number of your priority goals that you really want to blow up next year. So, and by blow up, I mean that maybe you're helping right now 20% of the students in your 8th grade class make that choice, and now we want to expand it so it's going to be 80%. Or maybe if it's a choice that you've never worked on before and we really want to hit it hard, or maybe it's a choice that you've introduced it before, but you need to reinforce it several times before kids are actually going to make that choice. So there's a lot of ways to kind of blow up a priority goal, but basically what we're meaning here is that you're working really hard to help kids make that choice, and this is something that you'll work on next year. And then the other thing with focus goals is that we're actually going to delve a little deeper with those goals. So we asked you to create baseline data for those goals and target data. And these are the goals that we would suggest you hold yourself accountable for really making a difference in these areas. And so that's why we want to put data to it, because I think after all the hard work you do on those focus goals next year, you're going to see that data go up. And one, it feels good to know that, that you're helping kids make better choices and the data is showing it. But also it gives you a way to advocate for your school counseling program and the good work that you do, because you'll be able to say, at the beginning of the year, 20% of the kids were making this choice, but at the end of the year, 80% of the kids were making that choice. So we're kind of, really delving deeper with these focus goals. And then today we're also going to look at the focus goals to think about, is it all kids that aren't making these choices, or is it just some kids? Is it just our low income kids or just our Hispanic kids? So we're going to delve even a little deeper with looking at which kids make these choices. And then when we get into root causes, we'll start to explain why kids aren't making these choices. So these focus goals are really going to get a lot of our attention. That's why we don't want there to be too many of them, because we really want to go really deep with a small number of goals that you're really going to emphasize for next year. So okay, so that's kind of what you did last month, and I know that I think we have two of your four schools that have focus goals approved right now. And we have one I think that just got submitted today, and then another one that's still working that is looking at giving the surveys first so that you can delve into this next meeting with your council. So, okay, so that's goals. And just a kind of a reminder, you're going to see this table several times in this month coming up. So when we're presenting the focus goals, we always are saying it's to increase the percentage of students who, and then here's the benchmark. I see there's an extra A in there. I'll take that out. Here's the benchmark, and then what's our baseline data, and what's our targeted follow-up data. And we have a date in here for both when we collected the baseline and then when we want to collect the target data. So, okay, so you'll see a table that looks like this several times. I just wanted to kind of get you familiar with that as we're doing this review. Okay, so I guess what I'd like to do, I know that there's two schools, I think the middle school and the elementary school, that have your focus goals approved, and I think so I guess let's just kind of hear from each of the schools, and I'm going to start with the elementary and the middle school. And if you could talk a little bit, maybe if you could share how many focus goals did you end up with, and maybe just share one that was really key to your council that you really wanted to make sure that all kids made that choice. So, okay, and Amy, since we know your mic works, why don't I start with you? Actually, let's do this first. Let's give you a few minutes, maybe 4 minutes or so. I'll be quiet, and if you guys can look at those focus goals and kind of remind yourselves what they are, and then decide which one you want to share as one of the ones that you thought was most important. So yeah, and if you're not a school that has your focus goals approved yet, you could just kind of talk with your council about what's the next step for making sure that those goals are approved and are submitted. And again, remembering that the survey has to be done before you get to the focus goals, because that all ties into the focus goals. So okay, so I'm going to just pause here for, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll come back. Okay, discussion time locally. Okay, we'll take one more minute and then we'll move forward. Okay, let's see what everybody's thinking. And Amy, since we know your mic works, I'm going to start with you. So, okay, Amy, everybody can hear you. So how many focus goals do you have, and which was most important?
Okay, so we had six focus goals, and they were applying self-motivation skills, positive and supportive relationships, fewer than 10 days, perseverance, respecting others, and organization.
And I'm sorry, the last one was what again?
Organization. Have a way to organize class materials and assignments.
Okay, perfect. Good. So I'm going to mute you again because I'm getting a real echo. There we go. Yeah, so great. So you know, I as I'm listening to Amy and talk about what the elementary is doing, like I'm getting all pumped up. Can you think about, you know, having a way to organize your class activities or class materials and your homework and all that? If that is something that when that becomes something that every student is in the building is successfully doing, just that one focus goal. Can you imagine what an impact that would have on the school? There were a couple others, well, actually all of them, but there were a couple of others that were focused on, you know, student engagement. And if that's something that the counselors and collectively the whole school worked on and they got the students to make those choices, that'd be huge. So yeah, and I could see also in listening to theirs that some of them were about student engagement in school. Some were more social, emotional based, and you know that's fine too. We know that, you know, for kids to be successful in life, they need that part as well. So yeah, great. So, and exciting because I can really see, you know, when that school is successful at really impacting those things, that's going to make a huge difference. So very cool. Good. Okay, let's go to the middle school. Kim, I'm going to unmute you. And Kim, can you share where you guys ended up with that? Kim? Oh, you know what? I know that there are several people. Kim's got people that are council members that are meeting remotely with us. So, and I just see that I have 3 Kims. So let me try this one and see if I'll unmute them. Oh, that one's muted.
I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so how many focus goals, and can you share a few of the top ones with us?
Okay, we have 6, and we think, just discussing right now, we think the most important one is create positive and supportive relationships with other students. Also, respect people who are different than they are. We think those are our top 2 focus we need to focus on.
Okay, perfect. So the top 2 were more relationship based. So your council went in that direction. I'm just curious, and it's fine if the answer is no. Were any of them more focused on student engagement, or were they all kind of relationship based?
Well, I did have one that's more, I would call it more academic. Take a written online career interest inventory or more career. We have a career one. We actually have 2 career ones because we have that one, and then we have the one that we added about our career fair. So we have 2 career, and then the rest are pretty much social and emotional. And well, participate in community service, but I would consider that social and emotional as well.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. That is wonderful. One of the things I really like about the career focus goals is that when students understand careers and have a sense of a career that they might be interested in, and then they further understand what it's going to take to enter that career field and to be successful in that career field, what we always see is that student motivation goes up. There's a really direct correlation between students having a career goal, a personal career goal, and motivation, because then they start to see why it's important to work at school. You know, it's not just because the Department of Education or their parents said, you know, you should get good grades at school. They understand the doors that it's going to open up later for them personally, related to careers and lifestyle. And they tend to be more motivated. So yeah, very good. So and I think I love that you are starting to see that this can be really different building to building based on the kids in the building and the data for the priority goals, and you know what really jumps out at you is needing to be worked on. So okay, yeah, super. Okay, let's go to the I'm sorry, Kim, was there something else?
No, that's just our
Okay.
bell.
Okay. So let's go ahead and go to the high school. And I know that we've had, I think, some challenges with getting some of the work done, which, having been an educator in the public schools for 20 years, I certainly know that happens. So, Janet, can you just kind of give us an update on where things are, and especially what your plans are in terms of getting this survey?
Yeah, we are looking at, right now we're in the middle of I-STEP testing, so trying to find a time when kids are not testing has been a little bit difficult. So we were talking just a minute ago about locking down a date and getting that taken care of so we can get that portion done so we can move forward.
Okay, that's great. And again, I'm not real concerned right now. We often have schools get a month behind, but if schools get 2 months behind, then we find out that it's really difficult to get caught up. So I'm really happy that you have a plan to get that survey done. And you might also, before you all go home today, you might also identify a date for your goals meeting. Did you have your goals meeting with your council? Or you did? Okay.
Yes.
You just weren't able to pull in.
We'll be finished with our survey in a week. We'll be done.
Okay. Super. Okay, well, that's wonderful. And let's see, we need Pipe Creek, and that's Elizabeth. So let's jump in here. And Elizabeth, can you give us an update?
Yes, I am actually at home with a sick little one today, so I don't have any of my materials with me.
Bless your heart.
Yes, it was, you can't make plans for that, but I know that we had, I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 goals, and ours are all social emotional driven for our little people. We're going to do a pretty big push in our building for social emotional standards, kind of on our report cards even. So
cool.
We focused our goals around that idea too.
Interesting. And the first thing that pops in my head is, if you're going to put kind of a social and emotional assessment on your report card, whatever you're measuring, however you're measuring that could really tie into additional data for GAK purposes, so that you maybe wouldn't always be using survey data, but however you're measuring that on your report cards or on your assessments, you could tie that in and just enter that in as GAK data too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that because it would really tie it all together and maybe help your teachers understand how GAK and all that kind of are one thing. So yeah, cool. Okay, well, that's wonderful. Yeah, good reports. I'm really pumped. Wonderful. So, okay. So let's talk about now this going forward, the root causes. So basically, just a quick definition is root causes are the reasons why students aren't making the choices that we want them to make. So, why aren't they coming to school? Why aren't they having a method for organizing their materials? Why aren't they getting along with authority? So we're talking about the whys. For me personally, this is my favorite meeting to facilitate. I think it's fascinating to look at all the data and to try, to, like a big puzzle, to try to figure out why kids aren't making the choices that they're making. There are a lot of processes that leave out this step, and when they get to activities, the activities then are just kind of random because they're based on our hunches about what we need to do. Where when we add this root cause analysis step, we are backing our hunches up with data, and sometimes the data points us in directions that we had never thought about. So, so I just think it's a really fun meeting to facilitate. So, a couple things we're going to do. One is we want to send the data to your council meetings, to your council members prior to your meeting. And that's going to be very simple this month. It's all you have to do is click a button, and our system will send an email out to all of your council members that includes links to your school's data and instructions for how to review that data before they get to your meeting. So basically, it looks like this. So there are, let me go back. So they'll get an email, and the first part of the email just says, as a reminder, our focus goals are to increase the percentage of students who, and then in the email, we'll pull that out of the system so that that's unique to your school. And it will list your 6 or however many you have focus goals in that part of the email. And then it goes on to explain that students may not be making those 6 choices because they lack the knowledge they need, they have a social personal issue that's interfering with their ability to make decisions, or they don't have an opportunity that they need in order to make that choice. So, and then we're just saying, to save time at the next meeting, please complete the steps listed below. So here's the instruction. So they're going to open each of the root cause reports that are listed below. So that's at the bottom of the email. And then we're just telling them that while the reports do not contain any individual student data, they do contain information that some may be considered sensitive, and therefore we're encouraging your council members not to go into the grocery store and start, chatting about how many students are feeling stressed in your building or whatever. If they do go into the grocery store and talk about that data, there's nothing wrong in terms of FERPA because there's no individual student data. But we just know that for some schools this is kind of sensitive, and so we are just asking the council members just to kind of keep this information to themselves. But if they don't keep it to themselves, it's not really a big deal. Okay, and then in step 2, as you read each of the reports, we want them to ask themselves what could be keeping our students from making the choices that we identified as our focus goals. And then when they find an answer, they're going to take a sticky note, and sometimes steering teams will want to give each of their council members a just send them in the mail a package of sticky notes or whatever, or they could just find sticky notes at home. But they want to write down the focus goal. They're actually going to write down what the goal is that this information is impacting, what report they got the information from, and then they would write down the possible root cause and then their initials. So I'll give you some examples of that in a second. So here's what the sticky notes might look like. So on the first one, we see that the focus goal was to increase the percentage of students who enroll in AP classes, so it's a high school one. The report they got it off of, they got the possible root cause from was the guidance report. And the root cause is that 50% of the kids don't know if the school offers college level courses. And they're thinking, well, if the kids don't know they offer college level courses, and they're not going to enroll in them. So, and then finally the initials of the person that created that sticky note. And then the next one, to increase the percentage of students who enroll in AP, same focus goal. This time the report is from the student assistance report or the counseling needs report. And the root cause was that 50% of the kids reported that stress is interfering with their learning. So they're thinking, if kids are stressed out about school to begin with, they may not be enrolling in upper level classes. So then the last one is the same focus goal, enrolling in AP. This time we found something in the opportunities report, and in that report, the counselors have reported that the school doesn't offer enough sections of AP courses to cover all of the needs of the students, the kids who would do well in that class. So that's kind of what the sticky notes would look like. So people are poring over the data at home before they get to your meeting. They're making this pile of sticky notes, and then they're coming with the sticky notes to your meeting. So, okay. And then that's step 3 is to bring the sticky notes with them. Okay, and then this is the bottom of the email. It gives them 2 links. One is to the root cause data reports. When they click that, they will see the survey responses from the guidance questions and the counseling needs questions. And then they'll see the opportunities that the opportunity survey that the counselors filled out. So they'll see guidance needs, counseling needs, and opportunities data when they click that root cause data report. And then at the bottom, we're actually going to ask the steering team to look at this in depth, but we want to give your council members the chance to delve deeper with this too. So they can click that link that says student group reports, and that gives them all of the root cause data, but now it's disaggregated by different student groups. So if they're curious, is this a need across the board, or is it just our free and reduced lunch kids, or is it just our males, or is it just our 7th graders? They can do the drill down reports and just start looking. So again, we're not requiring your council members to do that. There's no sticky notes that are going to be coming out of that. But we're giving them the opportunity to delve deeper into the student group data if they want to. Now, that said, with the steering team, we're going to definitely ask you to do that, delving deeper on that, so you can make some suggestions to your council members. So, okay. So that's the pre-meeting mailing. Oops, got ahead of myself. So that's one thing to do before the meeting. The other thing is this delving deeper into the student groups. So we'll ask the steering team to go into those student group reports for each of your focus goals, and to just see, is it all kids that aren't making these choices, or is there more boys than girls that are not making this choice, or is it mainly the free and reduced lunch kids that aren't making that choice? So the focus goal, again, here's that table that I presented before, that this is how, we'll be presenting focus goals to increase the percentage of students who. And as an example, let's say we're looking at who plan to attend a 4-year college, and this is a middle school, that this is actual data that came from a middle school. So the middle school said that, currently 54% of their students are planning to attend a 4-year college after high school, and they want to increase that to 75%. Now they want to know more about those students. Who are those 54%? So they start to look at the drill down reports, and if they find student groups where there's a discrepancy, if you find that, then we're asking you to write down the student groups and the percentage for that focus goal, to present to your council. That'll be part of the presentation that we'll go over in a minute. So how do you find that data? Well, let's look at a couple of reports. First of all, when you go into the drill down reports, and you probably have seen this before, but when you go into our survey results page, you get all of these reports. And so right now we're looking at plans and choices. And so you can say, I just want to see everything, or I want to see all the data, but this time disaggregated by grade level, or disaggregated by gender, or race and ethnicity, or free and reduced lunch versus paid lunch, if they're special ed or not. So there's all these ways that we've drilled down the data. If their parents have been to college, what kind of grades the kids say they typically get on their report cards. And then you also can create your own group. So you can say, we want to see what our African American third graders say, or our free and reduced lunch third graders say. Or we want to see what our third graders who tell us they get D's and F's on a report card, we want to see how they are answering these questions. So there's lots of drill downs here that we would like the steering team to kind of look at to see, do you have student group gaps for your focus goals? Okay, so again, here is real data. What do you plan to do in your first year after high school? This is data that was taken from 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and we can see that there's a pretty good discrepancy here. That 63% of the paid lunch kids said they plan to go to a 4-year college after high school, but only 49% of the free and reduced say that. So as you're developing your root causes, then you'll be thinking about, okay, what's getting in the way of the free and reduced kids that only 49% of them, are envisioning college in their future, as opposed to 63, and then you may decide, we want to do some special programming or do something that is really going to help the free and reduced kids consider 4-year college, because this is, that's kind of a large discrepancy. So that data can really speak to you. Here's another way. I found this data to be fascinating. So again, same question. What do you plan to do first year after high school? This came out of a middle school, 6, 7, and 8. We see that if the parent has a degree, 62% of those kids said they plan to go to college or university. If the parents had no degree, that drops down to 50%. But the thing that actually, when I saw this data, it just broke my heart. For the kids who aren't sure if their parents have ever been to college, only 30% of those kids plan to attend a college or university. And in just FYI, just across all of the data points, the kids who are unsure if their parents went to college tend to make a much lower percentage of those kids tend to make good choices. So, if I were still in the school and my heart is breaking for those kids, remember, I can go into the computer and find out who those kids are. And I'd probably be trying to get them into some kind of group counseling or give them special services, because there's some these kids are missing something somewhere. So this data, I think, is just, fascinating. And then here's one more. This is I thought this was really interesting. Again, middle school, 6, 7, and 8. And we're looking at attending college or university. So in 6th grade, 51% of the kids said they were thinking college or university. In 7th grade, it went up to 58%. And then in 8th grade, it went down again to 51%. So there's a lot of things that could play there in this. We might just say, this just happened to be a group of high-achieving 7th graders that year. If so, once you've given the survey multiple years, you could look back over past years and see, how that was. You could look back in the previous year's data when these kids were 6th graders to see, maybe it was 58 when they were in sixth grade too, and this hasn't changed. But my gut feeling after looking at a lot of data is that with 178 kids, this could just be a group of kids with high aspirations, but makes me wonder if there's not something that's happening between sixth grade and seventh grade that's increasing that percentage, and then something that's happening to make it go down. We often see this in high schools at grade 10 because that's when students start taking chemistry and some of the upper level classes, and then they think, oh my gosh, this is too hard. Makes me wonder if when these kids are signing up for high school classes, maybe that's discouraging them from thinking about four-year college. And it could also be, it could be a good thing. Maybe in eighth grade, there's been some really, really strong programming on apprenticeship programs and two-year colleges and skill building in the military. Maybe these kids are just more aware of their options. And so in seventh grade, when they thought it was four-year college or nothing, now they're starting to look at some of the other options. But again, this just made me curious. That that's one of the things I love about data is that it just begs discussion. It just begs more questions. It's one of the reasons why I love that we're doing this as a team with your steering team that has a really diverse group, even on your steering team, but also with your council, so you can kind of brainstorm. We've had schools that have put together like focus groups of students so they could go out and ask the kids, why do you think this data is coming down? From your perspective, what are we missing here? Or, I don't know. I love data because it begs questions. So, okay. So if when we're presenting then this focus goal, you would fill in this chart with anything that you found. So you might then be alerting your council when you talk about the root causes for this focus goal that, one of the things we want to think about is that fewer free and reduced lunch students sign up. Kids who aren't aware if their parents have been to college, so maybe these kids are less engaged with their parents. Fewer kids have an aspiration for post-secondary, for college. And then you could choose to put the eighth grade data in too. So there's nothing like that you're required to put in here. It's just things that jump out at you that are curious. Things that as you're trying to figure out why kids aren't making the choice, you want to think about, what about this group? Because we've got a discrepancy there. So, just things to think about as you're looking at that data. Okay, so then again, this also is a prep for the meeting. You're going to, as the steering team, kind of dig into the drill down reports and look for some of these discrepancy areas. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to pause here, ask for questions, and then we'll walk through the presentation for your council. And I'm not seeing any hands up. I'm not seeing any typed in questions. So I'm assuming that everything makes sense, or at least enough sense that you know what to ask questions about in the coming days. So, okay. So now we're pretending that we're with your council and we're talking to them about root causes. And we know that before they come to your meeting, they've already looked at all the data and they're coming with a pile of sticky notes. So they've already done some preliminary thinking about what's getting in the way of your focus goals. So, okay. So, agenda, quick review. We're going to introduce root causes. Then we're going to talk about general root causes. We'll define that in a second, and then specific root causes. And then we have a homework assignment for your council. It's not going to take them a lot of time, but there's some thinking that we want them to do before they come back. Okay, so quick review. This is basically what we just went through. On this slide, you'd want to fill in, and again, I'll take that A out of there, but you'll want to fill in on this slide what your, I numbered wrong too. I'll fix this slide. But you want to fill in your 6 benchmarks and then what your baseline data is and your target data. And just remind people, these are the 6 focus goals, the 6 areas that we're really going to hit hard next year. Okay. So here's the introduction for root causes. I love this quote. This woman is an environmentalist from Kenya, and she was a Nobel Peace Prize recipient. And she says that we often preoccupy ourselves with the symptoms of something that's wrong, whereas if we went to the root cause of the problem, we would be able to overcome the problems once and for all. And that's what we're doing today. We're looking at, these are the choices that the kids aren't making. What's the root cause of that? And if we can nail that root cause, then kids will start to make the choices we want them to make. So it's a really important step. Once we've identified the root causes, then we know what activities to put in place. So our activities will not just be random when we talk about them next month, but they will be focused on these root causes that we come up with. So what is a root cause? A root cause is an explanation for why students aren't making a targeted choice, in this case, the choice in your focus goals. So why don't students make good choices? Well, there's general root causes and then there's specific root causes. So a general root cause is going to impact all of your focus goals. So, for example, if students have social emotional issues, they may be in a place where they're not going to make any good choices because they're just dealing with other stuff that's going on in their lives. So a general root cause is going to impact all of your focus goals. And then there are specific root causes that only impact one of your focus goals. So on the one that we talked about earlier for, I think it was the middle school, or maybe it was the high school. No, it was I forget. One of your schools talked about students having a way to organize their materials, and maybe kids don't organize their materials because they don't know how to organize their materials. So it's a knowledge thing. Maybe they don't have, they haven't had an opportunity, to learn that. So, because they come from a home where their parents, are not skilled at organizing materials. So, so we want to look, first, are there general root causes that are going to impact everything? And then one by one, we'll look at your focus goals to identify what knowledge or opportunities are the kids lacking that if we gave those to them, they would be more likely to make that choice. Okay, so there's clues in the data. And, here you're just reminding people really that, at home you pawed through a lot of data, you roll up your sleeves, we've come with these sticky notes, and you looked at, students' guidance needs, which basically tell us, do kids have the knowledge they need to make the choice? We looked at their social emotional needs, which tend to be more general in nature. And then we also looked at the student opportunities report. Are we giving the kids the opportunities they need, like to do a career interest inventory that was mentioned earlier? Are we giving kids the opportunities to do those things? So, okay, so there's clues in the data, and people have come with those sticky notes. So the first task for your council is to identify your school's general root causes. So here's the prompt. What situations do you find in the data that would make it difficult for students to make any of the choices listed in our focus goals? So these are general things that get in the way of all of the kids' choices. So maybe, the kids are overly stressed, or they're depressed, or they have a general fear of failure. This is actually, fear of failure is one that we're kind of surprised statewide how high that percentage is for kids in Indiana. So you're having a discussion about stress, depression, and fear of failure. Then, as you're having that discussion, let me jump back to the resources that we have given. Oops, let me come back. Where am I going? I want to go to the manual page, and I'm going to scroll down to the, as you're having that discussion about the general, here's the root causes. We've given your council members, as part of their handouts, a document that looks like this. It's a general root cause brainstorm. And as people are saying, here's some general things that we think was going to impact all of our focus goals. So the first person who speaks might say, the kids are stressed. So what you'll instruct your council members to do is, across from number 1, write down stressed. The next person says, all the kids are afraid of failing. Then you'll say to the council members, across from number 2, write down fear of failing. So as each idea comes up, we're going to write it on this brainstorm list. Okay, after all of the ideas are on here, and you may not have a lot of ideas here. You may just have 2 or 3, but you may have a lot. It just depends on where your council goes. The next part is that you're going to ask your council members, each one of them individually, to check a third of the responses that they think are most getting in the way of your kids' ability to make good choices in a general sense. So if there's 6 things, you're going to ask people to identify 2. If there's 12 things, you're going to say, okay, identify 4. So you're forcing people to prioritize on this. Okay, so each person is doing that at their seats individually. And then the next step is you have a poster, and I'm going to come back to, now I'm down into the tools that we're giving you. Here's the general root cause Instagraph poster, and I'm going to open this up. And here's the poster. So this is a poster. One of your steering team members is filling out this column the same way that each of the council members filled out that brainstorm list. So number 1 would say stress. Number 2, they would have written down fear of failure. Number 3, they would have written down depression, possible, general root causes. And then you're just asking people, how, when you prioritize and you picked a third, come up to the Instagraph, please, and put a sticky dot or an X to the right of the ones that made it to your top third. And then that will build an Instagraph with the bars coming out horizontally to the right. And then you can say with the group, okay, we've identified that fear of failure is our number 1, and it got a lot of votes. We feel very strongly about that. And stress came in as number 2, but we didn't feel strongly about that one. So again, this is kind of a consensus building. When you're starting to identify formally what your root causes are, you'll be able to look at this poster and know what the general root causes were that the council was concerned about. Okay, so now we're going to go back to Now we're going to specific root causes, and in the next several slides, we're going to repeat these slides for every one of your focus goals. So our specific root causes, we're first of all asking people to take their sticky notes and to put them on a poster. You have a choice here of breaking if you have a large council, you might want to break into small groups. Each small group would have a poster, or you could do this as a large group, just depending on how big your council is on and how many members attend on that night or that day. So on this poster, you've got your focus goals across the top, and then the different types of reports, guidance, counseling, opportunity, are down the left. And to begin with, you're just asking people either in their small groups with their small groups poster or as a large group to just come up and put their sticky notes in the right quadrant. Then, as you're talking about each of your focus goals, you can kind of, just look at, here are all the things that people came up with that might be getting in the way of this sticky goal, or this focus goal. Okay, so then we're going to go through one goal at a time, and we'll start out with to increase the percentage of students who, and you will have typed in that whatever the benchmark is for the first goal, the benchmark, baseline data, target data. Then you're saying, okay, we're starting with this goal, and then here are some of the GAP groups for this specific goal, and you'll fill in that sheet. So that's already filled in, so you can start talking about the characteristics of students who are not making that choice. And then you're helping, the prompt is that we're increasing the goal is we're increasing the percentage of students who choose to, reminding people what that focus goal is. And then we're saying, okay, more students are not making this choice because why? And now we're into a discussion, and you're saying it's going to probably be because they don't know something, they don't have the opportunity, or there's a social emotional issue that's interfering with everything. So actually, since we already talked about social emotional, I'll take this that's a one I forgot to do. I'll take that line off there. So they don't know something, or we haven't given them the opportunity. So on the one on the career interest inventory, we want to increase the percentage of students who choose to take a career interest inventory. And then you might brainstorm, they don't do it because they don't even know what a career interest inventory is. And two, we don't give them the chance to take one. So those are two huge root causes. So, okay. And then this is going to work the same way as it did for the general. So everybody at their seats has a copy of another one of these brainstorm sheets. They need one for every one of your focus goals. So for the two schools we heard from who have 6 focus goals, everybody at their seats will have 6 of these, and they'll have different focus goals written here. Then as people are brainstorming, you'll write in what they think might be getting in the way, what the why is. At the same time that they're doing that, and then at the end of that discussion, you're asking people to vote for a third, just like with the general. And then at the same time that people are writing that down in their seats, one of your council members or one of your steering team members is writing down the possible root causes that get brought up. And then you're bringing everybody up to do the Instagraph. Okay, so that's it. So if you're a school that has 6 focus goals, this will end up being 7 discussions. You'll have 1 discussion about your general root causes, and then you'll have 6 discussions, 1 about each one of the root causes for each one of your focus goals. So 7 discussions altogether. So then at the end of this, you'll have a kind of a consensus on what your root causes are, why kids aren't making the choices for each of the focus goals that you've identified. And now comes looking forward. So we're saying to the council, at our next meeting, we're finally getting to action. So we know what's getting in the way. Now we want to talk about what are we going to do about it. So at our next meeting, we're just going to have a big brainstorm about what activities could we put in place to address the root causes that we just came up with, so that the kids will begin making the choices that are in our focus goals. So we're going to activities next month, and the activities will be linked to those root causes. So the homework for the council is to think about what activities could they do. So far, all of this has been focused on the counselors and what the counselors are going to do. But we want to plant a seed here that it would be really cool if it were not just the counselors. That if we all work together to help kids make those choices, if we all work together to help address those root causes. So we're asking the council members over the next month to think about, or maybe talk to, their employers, their faith-based organization, any service clubs they belong to think about what could they do to help kids make the choices in your 6 focus goals or your 4 focus goals. So we're really trying to look at this as community-based guidance now and not just school counselors. There is no requirement for Indiana Gold Star or for Ask a Ramp that this becomes community-based guidance instead of just counselor-based guidance. But we have found that right here, there tends to be a lot of motivation among community organizations to help, and why not put the invitation out there? When my own school did this, we had maybe, 12, 15 different organizations that started to say, started to volunteer. That, one of my focus goals was that kids would visit a college campus, and, the counselors went into the classrooms, into the junior English classes to talk about how to set up a campus visit and what questions to ask during a campus visit, and all the logistics of how to do one. But then one of our organizations stepped forward and they said, we could take kids. That could be one of our projects for our service club, is to put kids on a bus on Saturday and take them to a campus. And so they jumped on board that way. Another example, one of our focus goals was we wanted our seniors to complete merit-based scholarships applications. And one of our, again, it was a Purdue Extension Homemakers Club of little ladies. I think they were like all 90 years old, and they just got all fired up about it. One of them had been on our council, and she went back and said, we can really help with this. We can, let's talk with Sue about what we could do. And so what they ended up doing is that every time I got a scholarship, merit-based scholarship information in the mail or online, I just put it in a basket. And once a week, they came in and they got all the information into a database. They printed a newsletter to pass out to the kids. And then they went even further to start looking at the kids' career interest inventories. And if a student had expressed an interest in nursing and a nursing scholarship came in, they would write that student a little note that said, here's a scholarship application you should fill out. I think you'd be good at this. And I mean, all of a sudden, it was like I had 15 employees or partners working with me, when in the past there were just 2 of us, and now there were 12 of us working on this stuff. I mean, it was just fantastic. So we want to kind of plant the seed for community-based guidance. And then this will morph into next year. In the first semester, we're really going to blow up the community-based guidance initiative in Guiding All Kids. And then this will be kind of the starter of that. We'd like there to be some community organizations that have already stepped forward because they see the value in helping you help kids make those choices in the focus goals. So this is pretty exciting. So, but very informal at this stage. We're just asking them to think about it, talk to their employees, and then when we come back next month, we'll ask, have any of you thought about what you guys could do in the community to help with some of these focus goals, and then we'll give them a chance to kind of, talk about how that could happen. So, okay, that is it. So last month we went a little over. This month we're going to be a little under. And again, I just find the data is just so fascinating, especially when I get into those drill down reports, so I can start looking at which kids make good choices and which kids, don't tend to make as many good choices. It's just fascinating. So I'm not seeing any hands up. I'm just going to check in with, let's go back to Kim, since Kim is my district point person. And Kim, I think I just unmuted your mic, Kim. Is this you?
Yep, it's me. Can you hear me?
I can. Is there anything else you'd like me to talk about, or
I think we're good. No, I think we're good. I just need to go through the tools and make sure I'm on board with all of that, but that's something I'll do tomorrow morning, so I'm good.
Okay. And I'm not seeing any other hands up. I'm not seeing any questions. I know in talking to Tina that you've been chatting with her frequently, so that's really, really good. So I know that we cover a lot of these things in these webinars, and then it's like, what did Sue say? But anytime a question comes up, just call Tina. Our turnaround time is 48 hours, and reviewing your work and returning phone calls should be actually 24 hours on phone calls and emails, unless Tina's out meeting with another group of schools for a day. But if that ever becomes problematic, please make sure you let Tina know or let me know, because we're very aware that you're trying to do this work on your personal time, at lunch and passing period, and we want to be there for you when you need us to be. So so if there's ever anything that we don't respond to, an email or whatever, just shoot me that information, and then that'll give me the opportunity to really dig in to see, where did it get, do we have a glitch somewhere where something got stuck along the way. So, so that sounds good. And I guess thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. I know that you don't get extra pay or a corner office for doing all this. And, the kids at this point, we're not seeing the results yet. And but just know that how much we appreciate you and how excited we are for where this is going to end up at Mechanical. I think it's really going to be cool. So, okay, give us a call if you get stuck, and we'll have a good rest of March. And I think if I don't know what, let me unmute Kim again. Kim, when's your spring break? Whoops, where did Kim go? Let me go to someone else. Amy, Amy, when's your spring break?
The week of March 11th, the last 2 weeks of March.
Okay. Oh, 2 weeks. That's nice. Okay, so you'll have a spring break before we see you again. So have a nice spring break, and we'll catch everybody in April. Thanks, everyone. See you.